Most people fail in life not because they lack ability, but because they love comfort more than they love growth. Comfort is a soft pillow that slowly puts ambition to sleep. It whispers, "You are fine where you are," and that whisper becomes the voice that buries dreams. Comfort weakens ambition because it trains the mind to settle for what is familiar instead of reaching for what is possible. When a person becomes comfortable, the hunger for improvement slowly fades and is replaced by a quiet satisfaction with average results. Ambition thrives on challenge, but comfort removes the need to struggle. And without struggle, the desire to rise loses its fire. The mind begins to accept routine as destiny, and effort is replaced by convenience. What once felt like a temporary resting place becomes a permanent residence, and the spirit that once dreamed of more learns to live with less. The danger of comfort is not in what it gives, but in what it takes away. It takes away urgency, it takes away curiosity, and it takes away the sharp edge of desire. A person who grows accustomed to ease no longer feels the pressure to improve skills or sharpen thinking. The goals that once seemed necessary start to look optional, and optional goals are the first to be abandoned. Ambition needs friction to stay alive, just as fire needs air to keep burning. When everything feels easy, the fire slowly turns into smoke. Comfort teaches the mind to avoid risk, and ambition cannot survive without risk. The ambitious individual understands that progress requires stepping into uncertainty, but the comfortable individual avoids uncertainty at all costs. Over time, this avoidance becomes a habit, and the habit becomes a character trait. Fear of discomfort disguises itself as logic, calling caution wisdom and delay preparation. In reality, it is comfort defending its territory by weakening the will to move forward. The longer a person remains in comfort, the heavier ambition becomes to carry. Dreams begin to feel unrealistic not because they are impossible, but because the muscles of effort have grown weak. The mind that is used to ease becomes easily tired by challenge. What once inspired action now produces hesitation. Comfort reshapes expectations downward, teaching the individual to measure life by what is safe instead of what is meaningful. Ambition is a force that demands movement. It pushes against limits and questions accepted boundaries. Comfort, on the other hand, rewards stillness. It praises the familiar and resists the new. When these two forces meet, comfort usually wins unless ambition is protected by discipline. Without discipline, ambition becomes only a thought instead of a driving power. Thoughts alone do not change circumstances, but disciplined action does. Every achievement in history required someone to abandon comfort for a greater purpose. The moment a person chooses ease over effort, the vision of growth begins to shrink. The mind starts justifying smallness by calling it balance and calls surrender peace. This slow shift is almost invisible, yet it changes the direction of an entire life. Ambition that is not exercised becomes fragile, and fragile ambition cannot withstand obstacles. Comfort creates the illusion that tomorrow will always be available for improvement. This illusion steals today's effort and replaces it with excuses. As effort decreases, ambition loses its structure and becomes only a wish. A wish without action is merely a form of escape. The individual who remains comfortable may still speak of goals, but the language of goals without the labor of pursuit turns into empty sound. To protect ambition, one must willingly disturb comfort. The mind must be reminded daily that growth is more important than ease. The moment discomfort is accepted as a necessary companion, ambition regains its strength and direction. The person who understands this principle learns to see discomfort not as an enemy, but as a signal that progress is being made. Growth begins with discomfort because discomfort forces the mind to leave familiar ground and enter the territory of learning. When a person remains in ease, the mind repeats what it already knows and the body performs what it has already mastered. Nothing new is created in a place where everything feels safe. Discomfort interrupts routine and challenges old patterns of thought. It demands adaptation, and adaptation is the first step toward expansion. The individual who avoids discomfort also avoids discovery, choosing predictability over possibility. Every form of development requires a break from the old self. The habits that once felt natural must be questioned, and the beliefs that once felt certain must be tested. This testing produces unease, but that unease is evidence that the mind is stretching. Muscles grow only when they are placed under strain, and the same law applies to character and intelligence. The moment effort becomes uncomfortable, hidden capacity begins to awaken. Discomfort teaches awareness. It reveals weaknesses that comfort hides and exposes limits that routine never touches. A person who never feels uneasy never truly examines himself. But when difficulty appears, the individual is forced to evaluate skills, decisions, and direction. This evaluation creates insight, and insight becomes the foundation of improvement. Without the signal of discomfort, there is no reason to change, and without change, there is no growth. The mind resists discomfort because it mistakes it for danger. In reality, most discomfort is not harmful. It is unfamiliar. The fear attached to it is a reaction to the unknown rather than a response to real threat. When a person steps into new responsibility, new effort, or new thinking, the mind protests because it has not yet built certainty in that area. With repetition, discomfort turns into competence, and competence turns into confidence. What once felt heavy becomes light through use. Progress is a series of uncomfortable steps taken consistently. Each step widens the boundary of what is possible. The individual who accepts discomfort as a companion becomes resilient, while the one who avoids it becomes fragile. Comfort creates dependence on conditions, but discomfort creates strength independent of conditions. Strength built in challenge does not collapse when circumstances change. Discomfort also sharpens purpose. When life feels too easy, direction becomes unclear. Difficulty brings focus. It forces priorities to the surface and separates what is necessary from what is merely pleasant. Through discomfort, the individual learns what truly matters and what can be released. This clarity produces maturity, and maturity produces disciplined action. Growth does not arrive as a sudden transformation, but as a gradual shift in tolerance. The person who can endure more challenge can also achieve more results. Tolerance for discomfort expands the range of effort, and expanded effort produces greater skill. Skill increases value, and increased value attracts opportunity. This chain begins with the willingness to feel uneasy while learning something new. Discomfort is a teacher disguised as resistance. It trains patience, strengthens decision-making, and builds inner authority. The person who listens to this teacher gains control over fear instead of being controlled by it. With each encounter, confidence is earned rather than imagined. Confidence built on experience is stable because it is supported by action. When discomfort is avoided, potential remains dormant. When it is faced, potential becomes active. The individual who learns to welcome difficulty gains access to deeper levels of ability. The mind that once sought escape begins to seek improvement. Through repeated exposure to challenge, growth becomes a habit instead of an event. Discipline defeats delay because it replaces emotion with order and intention with action. Delay is born from uncertainty and strengthened by comfort, but discipline is built from decision and maintained by habit. When a person depends on feeling ready, progress becomes irregular and unreliable. Discipline removes the need for readiness by creating structure that operates regardless of mood. It teaches the mind to obey purpose instead of preference. Delay disguises itself as preparation. It claims to wait for better timing, clearer conditions, or stronger motivation. In reality, it is often fear-seeking protection through excuses. The longer an action is postponed, the heavier it becomes in the imagination. What could be done in minutes begins to feel like a mountain. Discipline reduces this weight by breaking effort into simple, repeated acts. It transforms large intentions into small duties and small duties into completed results. A disciplined mind understands that time does not reward intention, only execution. The clock moves whether a person moves or not. Each postponed action leaves a space where opportunity could have been. Delay creates a habit of retreat, while discipline creates a habit of advance. Habits shape identity, and identity directs behavior. The individual who practices discipline becomes someone who acts, and the one who practices delay becomes someone who waits. Discipline also clarifies direction. When tasks are arranged and effort is scheduled, confusion loses its power. Delay thrives in disorder, where decisions are constantly reconsidered and priorities are unclear. Structure removes this confusion by assigning value to each action. The mind becomes calmer because it no longer negotiates with itself about what should be done. This calm produces momentum, and momentum weakens hesitation. The strength of discipline lies in its independence from circumstances. Motivation rises and falls, but discipline remains steady. It does not ask whether the work feels pleasant. It asks whether the work serves the goal. This consistency builds trust within the self. Each completed action reinforces belief in one's ability to follow through. Confidence grows not from thinking about success, but from repeatedly doing what was planned. Delay steals the present by placing everything in the future. It promises comfort now and effort later, but later rarely arrives as expected. Discipline claims effort now and promises freedom later. This exchange determines the quality of a person's life. The one who chooses immediate ease trades long-term progress for short-term relief. The one who chooses immediate effort trades temporary discomfort for lasting improvement. Discipline reshapes perception of time. Instead of seeing time as something to be filled, it becomes something to be invested. Each hour gains meaning when it is directed toward a purpose. Delay wastes this investment by allowing distractions to replace direction. The disciplined individual guards attention and channels energy toward tasks that produce growth. Through this control, scattered potential becomes focused power. When discipline becomes routine, delay loses its influence. The mind stops debating and starts doing. Excuses lose their appeal because action has become normal. What once required force now requires only decision. The individual no longer waits for inspiration, but creates it through movement. Action itself becomes. As the source of motivation, discipline also trains patience. It teaches that results are built layer by layer through steady effort. Delay seeks immediate satisfaction, but discipline accepts gradual reward. This acceptance allows persistence to replace impatience. With persistence, progress continues even when results are not yet visible. Through discipline, intention is converted into reality. Thought is given form through repeated behavior. Delay keeps intention trapped in imagination, but discipline releases it into experience. The path from idea to achievement is shortened when action becomes automatic. Each disciplined step reduces the distance between desire and result. The person who cultivates discipline gains control over time, energy, and focus. These are the three resources that determine achievement. When they are managed with consistency, delay has no place to grow. Purpose moves forward without interruption, and effort becomes a natural expression of commitment. Action creates opportunity because movement produces visibility, and visibility attracts possibility. When a person acts, he enters the field where events occur, where connections are formed, and where progress can be shaped. Opportunity does not visit those who wait in stillness. It appears where effort is already in motion. The world responds to energy, not to intention alone. A mind full of ideas but empty of action remains unnoticed by circumstance. Opportunity is often mistaken for luck, but what is called luck is usually the result of preparation meeting activity. Action places an individual in situations where information, people, and resources naturally gather. Each step forward exposes new paths that were invisible from a distance. Without movement, the future remains a theory. With movement, it becomes a sequence of choices. Action also sharpens awareness. When a person engages with reality, he begins to see patterns, needs, and gaps that passive observers overlook. These gaps become openings for advancement. The individual who tests ideas through action gains knowledge faster than the one who only plans. Experience reveals what thought alone cannot. Through trial and effort, understanding becomes practical, and practical understanding becomes advantage. The habit of action builds confidence. Each completed effort proves that progress is possible. This belief changes posture, tone, and direction. Confidence attracts cooperation, and cooperation expands opportunity. People are drawn to those who demonstrate movement because movement suggests leadership. The one who acts appears reliable, and reliability invites trust. Trust is the gateway through which opportunity travels. Action transforms mistakes into instruction. When a person acts, errors are inevitable, but each error carries a lesson. These lessons refine judgment and improve timing. The one who avoids action avoids mistakes, but also avoids growth. By engaging with challenges, the individual learns to navigate them. Skill develops through response, and response only occurs when something is attempted. Opportunity also depends on speed. The individual who hesitates loses advantage to the one who moves. Action shortens the distance between thought and result. While others are evaluating, the actor is adjusting. While others are waiting, the actor is learning. This continuous adjustment keeps him aligned with changing conditions. He does not require perfect plans because he improves them through use. Action creates momentum. One step produces another, and each step widens the field of influence. Momentum simplifies decisions because direction has already been chosen. When effort is sustained, resistance weakens and cooperation increases. Doors that were once closed appear to open not by request, but by recognition of effort. The person who acts also shapes his environment. He is no longer controlled by events, but becomes part of their creation. Instead of reacting to circumstances, he participates in forming them. This participation gives him a voice in outcomes. Opportunity favors those who contribute because contribution demonstrates value. Waiting assumes that conditions must improve before progress can begin. Action assumes that progress improves conditions. This difference determines results. The one who waits depends on chance, while the one who acts builds probability. Chance is unreliable, but probability increases with effort. Each action adds weight to the scale of success. Through consistent action, uncertainty becomes familiar. Fear loses its power because it is replaced by experience. The unknown becomes workable because it has been entered. With each attempt, the individual gains authority over his direction. Opportunity is no longer something to be found, but something to be produced through behavior. When action becomes a habit, opportunity becomes a pattern. The individual no longer searches for openings because he becomes an opening. His presence invites possibility because his movement creates space for it to appear. Success lives beyond ease because ease preserves the present while success demands the creation of a future. When life becomes too comfortable, effort loses urgency and direction weakens. Ease encourages repetition, and repetition without purpose leads to stagnation. The path of least resistance protects what already exists, but does not produce what does not yet exist. Achievement requires a departure from what feels safe into what feels uncertain. Ease teaches the mind to expect reward without exertion. Over time, this expectation reshapes standards. What once required discipline begins to feel optional. And what once required courage begins to feel unnecessary. The individual who settles into comfort gradually lowers the bar of effort, and with each lowering, the distance between desire and action increases. Desire remains, but action fades, and success cannot survive where action is absent. Beyond ease lies resistance, and resistance builds capacity. The individual who steps into difficulty gains strength not only in skill, but in judgment. Each challenge forces a decision, and each decision sharpens character. Character becomes the foundation of reliability, and reliability becomes the basis of progress. Ease offers rest, but it does not offer direction. Direction is found only where choice is required and effort is demanded. The mind prefers familiarity because familiarity feels secure. Yet security without expansion becomes confinement. The boundaries of comfort slowly become the boundaries of possibility. To go beyond ease is to widen these boundaries. New environments require new thinking, and new thinking produces new results. What was once intimidating becomes manageable through exposure. The unfamiliar becomes familiar through repetition, and the difficult becomes simple through practice. Success is not hidden in extraordinary talent, but in extraordinary willingness. Willingness to rise early when rest is tempting, willingness to continue when results are delayed. These choices are uncomfortable, yet they shape the conditions for progress. Each time comfort is refused in favor of purpose, the individual strengthens control over his own behavior. Control over behavior becomes control over direction. Ease also distorts time. It convinces the mind that there will always be another opportunity to begin. This belief postpones effort and reduces the value of the present moment. Beyond ease, time is treated as a resource rather than a luxury. Hours are invested instead of consumed. Attention is guided instead of scattered. Through this management, small actions accumulate into visible change. The pursuit of ease promises peace, but often delivers limitation. The pursuit of challenge promises effort, but often delivers freedom. Freedom is not the absence of work, but the presence of choice. Choice grows where competence grows, and competence grows where struggle has been faced. The person who embraces difficulty gains options, while the person who avoids it loses them. Beyond ease, fear is encountered and examined. Fear loses power when it is named and tested. Each step taken despite discomfort proves that the self is capable of adaptation. This proof builds inner authority. Inner authority removes dependence on approval and conditions. The individual no longer waits for confidence to appear, but generates it through action. Success does not reside in what is already mastered, but in what is still being attempted. It exists in the effort to improve rather than in the desire to relax. The road that leads to growth is rarely smooth, yet it produces perspective, resilience, and skill. Each obstacle becomes instruction, and each failure becomes refinement. The individual who chooses the harder path gains a clearer view of his own power. To live beyond ease is to choose expansion over protection. It is to accept short-term strain for long-term capability. It is to exchange comfort for competence and routine for reach. In that exchange, ordinary effort becomes extraordinary outcome, and potential is converted into performance.